Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 44, the Rock Podcast. For those about the pod, we salute you. In this episode, we begin a new feature, the A to Z of rock. Yay! We have recent rock news. We've got Book Club of Rock, new rock on the block, hidden gem time, of course. But without further ado, here he is, the amazing, the almighty, the adventurous. Here's Brian.
What a brilliant build-up. And then you go, here's Brian.
I know, it was supposed to be like that.
How are you, Matthew?
We're at A. We're going to be at A for the A to Z of rock. We're going to do them in order, Brian. We're not going to mess about like we did with the years. We're going to do them sequentially, alphabetically even.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So anyway, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. It's
Good.
Lots going on in the world of rock and roll.
There is, indeed. So should we start?
I think we should.
We normally go off-piste fairly quickly, but today, because we've got lots to cram in, we're going to start with rock news and some sad news.
Yes, Gary Rossington, the last founding member of Lynyrd Skynyrd, passed away this month. Sad news. The band are continuing on at the moment. I know they were playing some gigs this week. Damon Johnson has been sitting in with the band. So, yeah, really sad news. And Gary Rossington, a lot of people coming out and saying what a fantastic, first of all, songwriter he was. And then when you look at all of the guitar parts, Freebird, his slide solo and that, sad news. And I suppose end of an era for Skynyrd.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because I guess if you are in a way, a Lynyrd Skynyrd purist, you're hanging on to the fact that Gary Rossington was the last of the founding members, and sadly, they've had a very tragic past. Lynyrd Skynyrd, from the air crash in 1977 through to various mishaps and let's say early deaths of various members over the years in various situations. In a way, as I say, Gary Rossington was what he was, the last of as you say, the last of the founding members, and now he's gone. I guess there's Ricky Medlock is still in the band. He was there between 1970 and 72 or something.
Started out as a drummer, didn't it? Wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah. Wasn't there for the iconic first few albums, of course, but I guess we've still got Ricky Medlock as part of the band. But yeah, sad news. And again, we've said this many times. 71. I mean, relatively young by comparison, and of course the lifestyle probably played a part, with all due respect. But as you say, an end of an era, sad news. And
another era that coming to a close. A band that our good friend Johnny's listening to us. Saxon's guitarist and co-founder Paul Quinn has decided to step back from touring after 48 years of touring. So Paul put a statement out saying that he still remains a member of the band. He's going to just take a step back from touring. So 48 years on the road with his wheels of steel and his denim and leather.
Yeah, and you can understand it. As you say, been in the band since sort of 1975. Oh my goodness! Were you at university then? You started university?
I was just starting. Yeah.
Just starting. You're 15 years at university. I have a theory as to who may replace Paul Quinn as the touring guitarist of Saxon. Would you like me to share it with you?
Can I guess first?
Go on then. Guess.
Sam Wood.
No.
Because
I'll tell you who it might be. So I saw Saxon a few months ago now with Diamond Head opening for them. And Brian Tatler came on Brian Tatler's the guitarist from Diamond Head, for those who don't know. And he did Denim and Leather, the song Denim and Leather with him. And Biff at the time said that Brian Tatler had learnt the entire set because there was a potential that Paul Quinn, who had COVID at the time, may not be able to complete the tour, and Brian would be able to step in. So when I heard this news about Paul Quinn, I thought, well, maybe Brian, not you, Brian, although you're a pretty decent guitarist. I mean, you're not great, but you're okay, as we've established.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Maybe Brian Tatler could be the touring guitarist. Who knows, of course. But that's just my own personal little theory based on that one-off situation in the gig back at the Town and Roundhouse in whatever it was, October last year. There you go.
You heard it here
first. Indeed, yeah. Took the words right out of my mouth.
And talking about changing or getting drummers in bands, if you can remember, when we were talking about Mr. Big last episode, obviously I had my ear well to the ground thinking, could the new Mr. Big drummer be, he's going to be a great singer. I was that's Mike Portnoy.
Mike Portnoy, surely, we all thought.
Yeah, but remember, I thought it might have been Dean Castronova, because he was a great singer.
Yeah,
and of course, I was completely off kilter. My radar was completely off. And
your drumdar.
Yes, my drumdar. So who is the new drummer, Matthew?
You only ask me because it's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Nick De Virgilio, I think is how we're going to pronounce it. Nick De Virgilio is the new drummer of, at least the drummer for the Farewell World Tour, which hopefully include a date playing in London on the World Tour.
Yeah, I'm holding on to the fact that when the band announced that they were going to be playing all around the world extensively in venues that they loved, I too am hoping that it's not just a UK show in London.
Well, I hope not. Yeah. I hope not, because they do deserve to. I mean, the people in the UK, there's a lot of Mr. Big fans out there. Do you think they might play that Colliery, where you saw Graham Bonnet and was it Don Airy that time?
Easington Colliery.
Easington Colliery, that was it. It's come to me now.
I think they're a little bit. I think the demand is a little bit higher for Mr. Big than it would be for Graham Bonnet and Don Airy.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I hope they play somewhere decent in London, maybe a Brixton or a Hammersmith, because last couple of tours they played at the
O2s.
No, not even that. I think they played the Shepherd's Bush Empire and also the Scala, I think, in Camden. So things which are not big venues, particularly good venues, but not that big. So hopefully they'll play somewhere. A bit on the
but Nick's great.
Side.
I would say that Nick is an absolutely fantastic drummer. I've seen him. Yeah, I've seen him with a band called Big Big Train, which are a progressive rock band in the kind of Genesis-y, sort of molds. Very, 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 very good drummer. I've not heard him sing, so if they're saying that he can cover off the Pat Torpey bits, he must be very good singer indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talking of gigs, I've been to a few recently. Thanks for asking. Went to see Those Damn Crows. I think I mentioned that in the last episode, who are on their UK tour, headlining tour. And they were excellent. Playing lots of songs off the new album, Inhale, Exhale, which we talked about then, and is currently my album of 2023. Great album. I think we talked about it. We did talk about it in the last episode. The next night, I went to back-to-back gigs, Bri. It was quite hard on the old body, I tell you. I went to see an excellent Rush tribute band called Moving Pictures.
Oh, okay.
And they were on at the Cart and Horses, which labels itself the birthplace of Iron Maiden. It's a pub / venue in the East End of London. But they were excellent. They did a career-spanning tribute to Rush. Tremendous musicianship, and look forward to seeing them. And I'm going to that Rush convention up in Glasgow. I think you're coming as well, aren't you, for
indeed.
a day or so?
Yeah.
And then finally, I saw three relatively young, relatively new bands locally to me, which is quite nice. I think we've got a cab there, actually, which is pretty good. Three bands opened up by a band from the Northeast called Thieves of Liberty. I said I'd give them a mention. And then a band called The Howling Tides, and the headliner was a band called The Karma Effect. Now, I guarantee you'll hear of all of those three in future. Three excellent bands, great material, great musicianship, and hopefully a big future. And it was a great night.
Excellent.
If you see those sort of gigs come along, then please go out and support them, because trust me, these guys, I mean, the guys from the Northeast, Thieves of Liberty, had a very, very long drive down to the Southeast and then back again to do an opening 40 minutes in Oxted. So again, give them your love whenever they're out there. How about you, Brian? What's next?
I saw, talking about bands, my new favourite venue in Scotland, I went to the Barrowlands again.
Really?
Yes.
Get you getting out there.
Yes, and I went to see the Scottish band called King.
Right.
King.
Did you go and see King, or did you just go and see Glenn Tilbrook and King happened to be on the bill as well?
Busted.
Busted were on the bill as well,
No,
no.
That would be an eclectic lineup, wouldn't it? Busted. Thankfully, Matthew, off the top of my head, I can't think of a Busted tune for us.
No.
Maybe we should put it down as a hidden gem sometime. Busted, and see what we can get away with.
We'll put something on the playlist. Your reaction, I guess.
Yeah. So actually, Glenn Tilbrook was phenomenal. He was just him and his acoustic guitar, and he played electric guitar just on his own. I think he did a brilliant version of "Don't You Want Me, Baby" by the Human League.
Oh, really?
Had the crowd singing that. He was in great form. First time I've seen King headlining. We saw them play as support to Europe down in Brighton.
Yes, true.
Yeah. And I thought they were really, really good. Just that white, snaky, melodic rock. Alan Nimmo, who's Stevie Nimmo's brother, so both Nimmo brothers are now in King. Honestly, the vocals, if you listen to King and you listen to FM, the vocal performance of, and you and I are both big, massive fans of Steve Overland, but I have to say I was so impressed with Alan Nimmo's vocals. Really great singer. So that's probably been the only gig I've been to since we last recorded. But King are out and about. But Glenn Tilbrook still rocks.
Did he do? I guess he did plenty of Squeeze songs.
He did indeed. Yeah, he did. Black Coffee in Bed, Tempted, with a lot of help from the crowd as well too. And he was trying. He also tried bluesing it up a bit. Like I'll do, try and make it a bit more bluesier for the King audience. But he went down brilliantly.
Did he do my favourite Squeeze song, "Up the Junction"?
Of course he did. Yes.
Fantastic. That's just my excuse to stick that on the playlist. Fantastic. Good stuff. All righty. Got anything else for us, Brian? News-wise,
we talked about Jeff Beck last episode. Very quickly out in the news, Jeff Beck's estate and Eric Clapton. End of May. I may be in London, Matthew.
Oh, really?
Maybe in
a surprise.
There's two nights have been announced. Star-studded tribute to Jeff Beck. So quite a lot of Jeff Beck's peers, Rod Stewart, and so many great guitarists, Doyle Bramall, Derek Trucks, who are all coming to pay tribute to Jeff Beck. And the last one I'll finish off on was news. We haven't mentioned The Who in quite some time, but I was reading in the news that Roger Daltrey was desperate to have a go on a steam train. So in exchange for being allowed to have a go on a steam train, the Who have actually agreed to play at a transport festival. Coming to you soon.
Fantastic. I thought that was hilarious.
Oh,
Fantastic.
my goodness. So yes, that's all the latest news, Matthew.
Very good. Very good. So, Bri, a new feature, new rock on the block. What have you got for us?
Well, we have one of my favourite bands, a band that has headlined Old Rambling Man, and some think it could be the headliner at Made of Stone Festival. Extreme. Ooh. Extreme have a new single called Rise from their forthcoming album, Extreme 6. It's been 15 years since their last studio release. Fantastic single. So, you know me, everybody, you know how much I love Noonan Betancourt's guitar playing. He is all over it, his guitar playing. But I have to say, check out, when you listen to the vocals, have a listen to who Gary Sharon sounds like. He sounds like, to me, maybe a well-known Sheffield vocalist who in the mid...
Joe Cocker?
No.
Martin Fry?
Did any of them wear Union Jack underpants whilst they were gigging?
Bill Oakey?
Joe Elliott.
It sounds like Dev Leppard's Joe Elliott.
It does. He sounds much like it, but it's so well produced. So great single from Extreme. And in I suppose we started the show off talking about Gary Rossington, and one of the great bands who are playing that kind of lovely southern rock. That Blackberry Smoke, Lynyrd Skynyrd type sound is Robert, John and the Wreck, who have a new EP out released last week called One of a Kind, and it is fantastic. So go out, everybody, give it a listen. Great, fantastic Hammond organ, great guitar playing, great singing. I'm gutted. They played in Edinburgh not so long ago, and I had other plans, and I wish I'd gone to see Robert, John and the Wreck. So I know that they've been touring in the UK. Go and see them. They are incendiary live, and their new EP is great.
Yeah, they're one of those new up-and-coming bands. I think if you can see them now, you'll see them in relatively small venues before they get bigger and bigger. I say relatively new. They've had a few albums out. I think this is their... they've had 4 or 5 albums out. Come At Me is the, I think, lead-off song of that EP. So, check it out. And, of course, one of the great songs of the last few years was Oh Miss Carolina, which came out a couple of years ago. So, which is a fantastic song. Couldn't get that one out of my head. Good shout, Brian. Good shout. Another new feature, of course. So many new features.
I know. New Year's, new features.
New year, new features, of course. But we are into March. Oh, by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Which is this week, of course.
And to you.
Oh, thank you. I can actually justifiably celebrate St. Patrick's Day due to a very distant great-grandmother on my mum's side who grew up in County Kerry. So, the Guinness is on me, Bri. Where were we? So, Book Club of Rock. What have you got for us? It's your turn.
I
you
know.
Read a book. Everybody, Brian read a book.
Yay. I read a book. Hey, how fabulous
or rather,
am I?
you've read enough of it to be able to talk about it.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. So check this out, Matt. For those of you listening on the podcast, I am showing Matthew what I received. So I received a signed copy of this book.
Wow.
From the gentleman saying thanks, all of the best. I didn't randomly. I bought it, and I also got a card signed as well too, which I could use as a bookmark as I read the book. How fantastic is that? So the book that you made, no, it's so the book that I am reading at the moment, and I'm halfway through, and it's a fantastic tome. It is a book called Session Man, and Session Man is the story and autobiography of a gentleman called Phil Parmer. Do you know who Phil Parmer is, Matt?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Well, here's where I am here to help. Phil Parmer is the nephew of two gentlemen we're going to be talking about later on, the Davises.
Oh, really?
Ray and Dave Davis.
Kinks.
Yep. Yeah. So,
Right.
So Phil Parmer is well-known British rock sideman and session guitarist. He's probably best known for his work with Eric Clapton and Dire Straits. So in Dire Straits' last tour, he was the second guitarist in Dire Straits. It's a fantastic book. If you want to know the life of a young man who loves the guitar, gets into, wanting to play guitar for a living in the 70s, around the whole session scene, trying to hustle a gig. And he played with everybody from the Pet Shop Boys. He had a long-standing working relationship with George Michael. He played with Tina Turner. He's been on tour. It's a real insight into his life on the road and in sessions. And we've probably talked about this in earlier shows, Matt. Do you remember when Stevie Ray Vaughan passed away?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Stevie Ray Vaughan was on tour with Eric Clapton, and they were playing Red Rocks Festival, and it was that kind of Buddy Holly situation where sadly Stevie Ray Vaughan and members of Eric Clapton's entourage actually were killed in a helicopter. Phil Parmer could have been on the helicopter that expired, and only with Steve Ferrone, the drummer, I should say, in Eric Clapton's band, said, no, why don't you travel with me, Phil? Phil left his bag on the fated helicopter and went on a different one. So it's a great read. As a guitarist, not a very good one. To read about Phil Parmer, it's a really, really good read. So I recommend it. I'm not sure. I picked up my copy on eBay, and it's quite reasonable as well too. UK, $14.99.
Very good. Very good a bargain. Also, Brian, talking of books, of course, we do have a copy of The Lives of Brian by Brian Johnson of ESC/DC, and also for those about the pub, we salute you mug to give away to anyone who donates to Shelter, which is our charity of March in the UK. Shelter is works with homeless people and also looks to provide good housing for less privileged folks in society. So please go to our Facebook page, donate wherever you can, and you go into the draw to receive either the book or the mug. So, Brian, that brings us to our new feature. So we ran out of years last time in My Year in Rock. Oh, I should enjoy My Year in Rock.
I did as well. Yeah, it means we don't have to talk about university anymore.
It's true, actually. Although I still find an excuse to do that. So our new feature is the A to Z of rock. And where better to start than, of course, the letter A.
Wow.
Yes. As I said at the outset, we're doing this in alphabetical order. Not going to mess about because it's very, very difficult to track otherwise. So A is for... Of course, we have to start with the greatest rock band, arguably, there's ever been. Formed in 1973 by the Young Brothers in Sydney, Australia. By Malcolm Angus Young. It is, of course, the aforementioned AC/DC. Are you a fan of AC/DC, Brian? Do you like AC/DC?
I love AC/DC. I thought the way in which you were building this up, Matt, you were going to go, Australian band. I thought you were going to say Air Supply.
Air Supply, yeah. They were on my list. Potential.
But that's in our sister podcast of for those about to yacht rock.
Exactly. Yeah. AC/DC formed in 1973. I mean, they were in a way the archetypal kind of pub rock band.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, and then really started to get kind of global presence with their seminal albums, High Voltage, Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap. Power Age, of course, is an absolute killer album. The live album, If You Want Blood, You Got It, I think should be in everyone's collection. In fact, every AC/DC album should probably be in everyone's collection. And of course, as we've mentioned many times, after the sad death of Bon Scott in 1980, Brian Johnson joined, and they recorded Back in Black, which to my mind is probably the greatest rock album there's ever been. It's the second biggest selling album of all time after Michael Jackson's Thriller. Over 50 million. 50 million! You and I would be happy to sell 50 copies of an album. 50 million copies of Back in Black and counting. And I think most people have probably got that in their collection. And one thing that strikes me about AC/DC, I've been to loads of their gigs over the years, starting in 1981 at Donington Monster Rock, is they're the sort of band, and I was thinking about this, they did transcend all kind of fans of music in a way. A bit like the Foo Fighters, a bit like Guns N' Roses. You can go to an AC/DC gig, which is normally a stadium, of course, and you'll rub shoulders with people who's dyed in the wool rock fans like us, but also folks who are AC/DC is their only real sort of favourite rock band. I don't really like anything else apart from AC/DC. Great, good on you. Yeah, AC/DC. We had to start with them, Brian. Have you seen AC/DC over the years, of course?
I have seen AC/DC a few times. They always deliver. Love AC/DC. Absolutely. And I have to say, If You Want Blood, You've Got It is probably one of the best live albums ever. It's just
not far from you, of course, at the Glasgow Apollo.
Yeah, fantastic.
Back in 1978.
But talking about Glasgow,
yes,
here's my first A.
Go on.
I'm going to go with Alex Harvey.
Okay.
Yeah, Alex Harvey. We could do all of the easy A's, couldn't we, Matt? We could, we could talk about Air Supply and Airborne and
Aerosmith,
Alter Bridge, and
ABC.
So, exactly. So to me, I just ABC. What?
Yes. I've got them in my mind from earlier.
I was just thinking, are you prepping for another podcast, Matthew?
For those about to pop, we salute you. Yeah, we didn't really develop that one, did we? We need to get back on that one. For those about to 80s pop, we salute you. Anyway, yes. Alex Harvey Band. The sensational Alex Harvey Band.
The sensational Alex Harvey Band. So a band that was formed in 1972, fronted by Alex Harvey. Amazing musicians, Al Clemenson, Chris Glenn. Chris was in Michael Chester, as was Ted McKenna, who played along with Rory Gallagher as well too. So one of the early sort of theatrical rock bands, and songs like Midnight Moses, recently covered by the Dead Daisies. I love Faith Healer. Again, an excuse to put Faith Healer on the playlist, and the Boston Tea Party. And for those people who watch the Old Grey Whistle Test, whenever you see the footage of them doing Delilah,
oh my goodness, unbelievable.
Isn't it just?
Fantastic. Yeah. That is a really tremendous shout. Alex Harvey sadly died very young, relatively, had a heart attack the day before his 47th birthday.
Wow.
Back in 1982. And an amazing personality. And as you say, one of those classic kind of 70s quirky rock bands that are still very much kind of lauded to this day. You say you will hear the songs you mentioned, as you said, quite often covered by other bands. So that's a great shout.
Yeah.
Right. One of the other A's I thought of when we discussed this little spot was A is for air guitar. Now, the air guitar is as much maligned, I think. In fact, Richard Monk, one of our listeners, hello Richard, sent me an article a few weeks ago. I think it was from The Guardian or something similar, wherein there was a survey of, I think it was 18 to 28-year-olds felt that the air guitar was the single most embarrassing thing that they thought, I guess, people could do, along with the double thumbs up. It's a bit odd, I thought. But if you're a rock fan, I think, air guitar, air drumming, air keyboards, air anything, you'll go with it, won't you? Famously, if you went to a Rush gig, you'd see most of the first 6 or 7 rows air drumming, along with Neil Peart, of course. And there's nothing like getting the old air guitar out, right? I mean, they are prone to going out of tune, of course. We've discussed that, and you do end up losing them quite regularly. Of course, once you put them down, it's very difficult to find them again. But I've no problem with the air guitar. You like a bit of it. I mean, you're not very good at, obviously, the guitar or the air guitar, but you don't mind a bit of strumming on the old air axe, do you?
Oh, my goodness. I can remember going to discos before my university days. I remember going to discos, and you would have
a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, a long time ago. And you'd have the heavy metal rock section of the disco, and you would have again AC/DC with a whole lot of Rosie, potentially Caroline by Status Quo. So you had your head banging, and we were all doing our Angus's and. But I remember I think it was the documentary by Iron Maiden, and do you remember the Neil Kay, who is the London DJ? So they were showing footage of the mid to late 70s. And you had people coming with air. You had your air guitarists, and then you had people who came with the cardboard guitars.
It's true. Yeah. I actually had one. I actually made one. I think it was a Flying V. This is about 1980, 81, because it was a thing. You're right. I mean, people would make them either out of cardboard or plywood, depending on how good you were at woodwork and stuff. But I'm pretty confident I had a Flying V, maybe a Strat, I can't remember now, made out of cardboard, unless I dreamt it, which is always a possibility. But there you go. A is for air guitar, air drums, air keyboards, air whatever you want to do. Just do it. And don't worry about what they said in The Guardian, where, as I say, 18 to 29-year-olds felt that playing the air guitar was the most cringe-worthy and old-fashioned, uncool gesture to do. Which I think is a bit unfair.
Unfair. Also, within the A's, Matthew.
Yes.
And this only, in my view, this only happens in rock.
Yes. I'm all ears.
It is the anthology.
Oh, yes.
How many albums do you have in your collection where you have anthologies? I've got loads. I've got a Mama's Boys anthology. I've got a Gary Moore anthology. I've got more anthologies than you can shake a stick at.
Yeah.
And do you actually know what an anthology is, Matt?
Not really. I mean, I suppose it's like a series of the best of albums. Maybe, I don't know, the best songs or something.
You're so close. The definition in the dictionary, Oxford English Dictionary, a collection of songs or musical compositions issued on one album.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is a much used word in the world of rock, isn't it? Maybe it's supposed to give it that kind of grandiose gravitas. Yes, here's an anthology, guys. Do you mean it's the greatest hits? No, it's an anthology. Oh, okay. Is it a best of? No. So it's not a best of or a greatest hits. It's an anthology. Okay. I know what you mean. Yes, indeed. You can't beat an anthology.
You can't.
Can you? Can you? You got any more for us finally, Brian? And you got a good one, haven't you?
I have. A is also for where else do you have aliases? And,
Yes.
what are who else is going to be called Star Child?
I know. Nowhere than in rock. I thought about this many times actually. Aliases, stage names, alter egos.
Yep.
Call them what you will. Alter ego, another A, of course. Nowhere other than in rock have you got so many. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons are not their real names.
No.
I'm Vice and Stanley Ison, for example. Slash, as you say, aka Saul Hudson, and so on.
Yeah.
There are loads.
A is for aliases.
Yes, Lemmy, famously Ian Kilmister, christened Lemmy because he was always asking people to Lemmy a fiver.
Is that what it is? I never knew that.
It's true. Yeah, Geezer Butler, because when he was a little lad, he called everyone a geezer for some reason. So they decided to call him Geezer, and Ozzy and so on. There are so many, you're right. It's littered with aliases.
Exactly.
A is for aliases. We might have to come back to that one, Brian, under S is for stage names. Once everyone's forgotten A is for aliases. That's a good one. So if you got it, that's the first in the series of A to Z of rock. If you've got any others, boys and girls listeners, then let us know. We're obviously always happy to hear from you. And next time, of course, Brian, I've got a feeling it'll be B. B for Brian.
B for Brian.
Which of course will be close to your B for birthday.
It will be
At the end of March, of course. There you go. It all falls into place.
exactly. I'll be legally able to drink
Again. For the fourth or fifth time. Oh dear. Right.
So, Matt, just following on from the A to Z of rock, and you mentioned AC/DC.
Yes.
Famously, AC/DC features two siblings. So,
Indeed.
this next feature is where we're going to talk through our top 3 or 4 or 5, 6 rock and roll siblings. So, who have you got?
Nice. Right. So rock and roll brothers and sisters, sisters and sisters, brothers and brothers, I guess. So number 3 on my list is Ray and Dave Davis of the Kinks. And I'll tell you why. Because back in 1965, I think it was, which was a very good year, for obvious reasons, they essentially invented rock with... that's quite a bold statement, isn't it?
Exactly. End podcast there. The Kinks invented rock. Drop the
It was
mic.
1964, which is also a good year, but not as good as 1965, which is the year I was born, of course. So back in 1964, they released what a lot of people say is the earliest ever rock song in You Really Got Me, covered by pretty much every single pub rock band there's ever been.
Yeah.
And indeed, famously covered by Van Halen, who we may come on to talk about later.
We may do.
So, number 1, or rather number 3, first on my list is the Kinks. And we talked about them, actually, didn't we, last episode? They're still going strong all these years later. Sir Ray Davis, of course, who is now in his late 70s. And they've got a new album coming out, I think, sometime this year. So, we wish them well. Long way to continue. But, I mean, some amazing songs over the years, the Kinks. From Lola, of course, You Really Got Me, All Day and All the Night, Waterloo Sunset. Just amazing. So, yep. First on my list, Ray and Dave Davis of the Kinks.
So, following on from the brothers Davis, I give you the Brothers Robinson, the Chris and Rich Robinson from the Black Crowes, Matthew. Probably the best Rolling Stones tribute band there's ever been.
Oh, that's harsh. That is harsh.
Well, let's be honest. When Shake Your Moneymaker came out and the Hard to Handle single came out, let's be honest. What were we all thinking? It was that time, wasn't it? The Black Crowes, the Choir Boys. It was like everybody wanted to play good time rock and roll and be either the faces of the Rolling Stones. So yes. The siblings Robinson, who have split up and reunited, and it's been a real roller coaster. But I have to say, they've got a new live album coming out very, very soon. And they were recording last year. They put out some new material, which was an EP 1972, which was loads of cover versions of songs that were released in 1972. So
right.
Yeah, but they've had their challenges, and I love the fact, and we've probably talked about it as a hidden gem, the fact that the Black Crowes recorded with Jimmy Page, and Jimmy Page really wanted to go in the studio and write and record with the Brothers Robinson, and Rich didn't fancy it. Isn't it?
No. Wow. Yeah, Live at the Greek, of course, from 2000. We had that as a hidden gem.
It's great album.
Yeah.
And great singer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a great opportunity to put loads of Black Crowes songs on the playlist, of course. Jealous Again, my own personal favourite. She Talks to Angels, Hard to Handle, great cover, of course. Again, done by pretty much every pub rock band there's ever been. Remedy, and so on. Yeah, great shout. As you say, not always the best of friends, but some fantastic music over the last 30 odd years.
Yeah,
and well worth seeing if they do tour again. They do tour intermittently. They finished a tour, I think, in this country last year. Well worth checking out. Really good live act. Yeah, good shout, Bri.
Yep.
There's loads to choose from. I'm going to come somewhat up to date. And a band that we've mentioned a few times over the months, and that band is Hailstorm.
I knew you'd go there. I knew you would.
Yeah, fronted by Lizzie Hale, who's as we said before, an absolutely amazing singer, guitarist, front woman, front person. And as we've said before, can scream, can do the kind of more mellow songs, and complemented by a complete nutcase brother on the drums, RJ Hale. Who, again, if you've seen Hailstorm, you know what I mean. I mean, a showman drummer, if ever there was one.
Yes, the big, massive drumsticks.
Absolutely, yeah. Complemented by Joe Hodginger and Josh Smith on bass and rhythm guitar, respectively. But yeah, I mean, one of those bands that essentially were, I guess, the kind of epitome of the sibling band, in that they basically started out as just the two of them back when they were kids. With RG playing the drums and, as I say, Lizzie playing guitar, singing, massively influenced by classic rock, and I've been going since the mid 2000s, 2006, and I guess that's the essence of being in a band with your brother or sister. You know, they're there. If you're both playing, then why not form a band? And I guess many of the acts that we're talking about essentially did that. I know that the Youngs obviously were together in a band and formed AC/DC together. The Hales, the Davises we talked about. If you're going to be in a band, and you might as well be in a band with your brother and sister. So as I say, an archetypal case is Hailstorm. So we're, again, another great excuse to put some more Hailstorm songs on the old playlist. And again, as we said before, if they are touring, wherever you are in the world, go out and see them. Often on tour as an opening act, or in their own right, or at festivals. We're hoping to see them in this country in some festivals this year. So, next on my list is Hailstorm, featuring RJ and Lizzie Hale.
And not that we've planned this in any way at all, Matthew. I'm actually going to pick my next siblings are massive influences on Lizzie Hale. Is the Wilson sisters from Heart. They I think Lizzie Hale is quoted as Heart were the first female fronted band I heard and was influenced by. And she said, I heard Heart and it was like, singing like that as a girl is actually a thing to do. So I'm gonna go with Hearts and Nancy Wilson. Formed in 1973, probably started out more as a folk rock band in the early days, and then really the mainstream success, with the wonderful Barracuda single. Anybody who tries to cover that song, and we've seen Nathan James cover it. Yeah. It's a fabulous song. You need to have a real set of pipes to be able to sing. To sing Barracuda. They went through the mid 80s when they had their, let's just say their hair metal
resurgence. Absolutely.
Resurgence. But a massive influential band, very active in the Seattle scene, much coveted by the grunge scene. I know that Jerry Cantrell has worked with Nancy in particular with the Lovemongers. Such an influential band. And I know probably for those of us that are on social media, the one thing at the moment that is usually on YouTube or Facebook is when Anne and Nancy with Jason Bonham played Stairway to Heaven for the Led Zeppelin John F. Kennedy honors. So I couldn't not include the Anne and Nancy because they're phenomenal siblings. Great guitarist, and Anne Wilson's just an amazing singer.
Absolutely.
So who's your number one then?
Well, number one is also a set of phenomenal siblings, and we mentioned them many, many times. In fact, I think we mentioned Eddie Van Halen on our first ever podcast back in the middle of 2020. I'm going to go with the Van Halen brothers, Alex and Eddie, of course, as probably one of the two sets of most influential siblings that there's been in rock. Originally from the Netherlands, of course, moved to the US in the late 60s, formed Van Halen in Pasadena, California, as Mammoth, of course, back in 1973. Acquired one David Lee Roth as their singer, and Michael Anthony, of course, as the bass player, and the rest is largely history. I think back in the day they weren't going to be quite the performers they were going to be. I think Alex Van Halen was originally wanted to be the guitarist, and Eddie Van Halen wanted to play piano, from memory.
Really? Okay.
But obviously they changed instruments, let's say, and as I said, the rest is history. But I mean, just an amazing catalogue, and to an extent, as we've said, the legacy continues with Eddie's son Wolfgang, who we've seen, and we talked about his debut album. I think it was the album of 2021 for both of us, I think. So the legacy of the great Van Halens continue. But yeah, the for me the probably up there with the Youngs as the archetypal siblings in rock, Eddie and Alex Van Halen. Over to you, Bright. Follow that.
I'm torn. Well, how can you follow the Van Halen brothers? So I'm going to go back onto safe ground for me, young man. and I'm going to go with the Porcaro brothers.
Wow. Yes, of course.
Who were the backbone of the band. And I know you just like me saying this, Toto.
Toto. Do you know what? The more we talk about this, I'm so looking forward to the playlist, because we're going to have Toto, we're going to have AC/DC, we're going to have Van Halen. It's going to be the greatest playlist ever.
It is. It'll be an anthology.
Indeed. Aliases.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going with for the brothers Porcaro. Toto was formed in 1977. As for those of you who listen to the podcast, you know I'm a massive Toto fan. Founded by David Paich and Jeff Porcaro, who was a drummer. Jeff Porcaro, probably one of the most recorded drummers of all time as a session player. His brother Steve Porcaro, who allegedly, David Paich, who was one of the writers of Rosanna. Steve Porcaro was the boyfriend of Rosanna Arquette. So there was been a lot of stories that, was Rosanna Arquette the inspiration for the lyrics for Rosanna. And Steve was the keyboard player. Steve was always in and out of the band. I know he was probably one of the most cutting edge keyboard players in the 80s, a sound architect, soundscapes. But then their younger, the youngest brother, Mike Porcaro, and Mike joined as the bass player in the early 80s. Sadly, Mike contracted ALS and passed away. So there's been three brothers in Toto. Sadly, no Porcaros in the band in Toto these days. It's predominantly Steve Lukather, who was best friends with Eddie Van Halen, as you mentioned earlier. And they're still touring and they're still sounding great. So I'm going to go with my number one brothers as the Porcaro brothers from Toto.
Very good. That is excellent. As I say, I'm looking forward to the playlist as we speak. Loads of other more notable mentions than we have time to mention, but I'm sure you get your own favourites, siblings and bands. And if you do, of course, let us know on Facebook, or indeed at FTAT Pod on Twitter. So that was good, Brian. Enjoyed that. So, Brian, that brings us to Unsung Heroes. Not sure where to keep that as the jingle. We've only got one this week, and it's well deserved, actually. So, my unsung hero is someone called Ian Blundell. Now, who's he? You're wondering. Well, Ian Blundell was a teacher at my school, and I want to give him a shout out. I'm not sure he's still with us. I'm hoping he still is. But he was, I mentioned him a couple of times, he used to take us in the school minibus to gigs in the early 80s. And thanks to Mr. Blundell, a group of us went to see AC/DC at Wembley Arena in 1982 on the Thursday Back to Rock tour. We also saw Status Quo at Hammersmith Odeon back in 1982. And also he took my friend Kelvin, or our friend Kelvin, I should say, to see Gillan, Ipswich, Gaumont. And I think that's the straw that broke the camel's back, possibly the last time he took everyone on such an excursion, because everyone decided to go backstage to meet the Gillan band and kept Mr. Blundell waiting in the car park.
Oh, bless.
On I think a Sunday night or a Monday night or something like that. So to all teachers who have driven kids to gigs, or indeed started rock clubs, or encouraged kids to play instruments and enjoy music, and I know it's a lot of folks, from our friend Matt's teacher, Mr. Gray, who started Rock Club, which is a great idea when you think about it. Kids having rock club at school. To all teachers that have ever done anything like that, or encourage kids to pick up instruments or play drums or sing or go to gigs, then we recognise you as unsung heroes for this episode, and particularly Mr. Ian Blundell of Thetford Grammar School in the early 80s. There you go. Unsung heroes for this time, Brian.
Great
Short and
shout.
sweet. Thank you. Did you have any teachers that were massively influential on your mediocre guitar playing, Brian?
I do. In terms of teachers, I always remember before I went off to university, Matt, I always remember on a Saturday morning when I used to go orienteering.
Right.
I went orienteering a Saturday morning, and Mr. Bogle, who took us orienteering, our head of maths, allowed us to play status quo on the bus as we travelled. So it would just be, you'd be travelling all over Northern Ireland, and you'd be having 12 gold bars.
Fantastic.
And we're all sitting at the back with our double denim, listening to Status Quo. So Mr. Bogle was very instrumental in my love of Status Quo and Fender
Very
Telecasters.
Good. So, Brian.
Yes.
This brings us to everyone's favourite
Hidden Gem Time.
Thank you, Lola. As always. So I'll go first this time, Brian.
Okay.
A change. I think the first time in 44 episodes, I am going to push myself forward, go first in Hidden Gem Time. Got an album.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I've got an album from 2016 by Toesland. Remember Toesland?
I do indeed. We saw them at this much maligned Rambling Man Fair.
Still, yes, indeed. Fronted by James Toesland, who was a famous professional motorcyclist.
Motorbiking.
Turned Chris Spedding. Turned
Womble.
Turned singer. Yes, indeed. Turned singer. And a pretty good singer too. And he had a couple of albums out. My favourite album of his anthology, that's the right expression, is an album, as I say, from 2016 called Cradle the Rage. Check it out. We put some songs on the playlist. Standout song is Puppet on a Chain. Other songs, it's quite a cynical album, co-written with Toby Jepson from Wayward Sons and Little Angels. Also Too Close to Call, Stranger Things is pretty good, and so on. Loads of good songs in the album. My favourite song, as I say, is Puppet on a Chain, which is a fairly derogatory look at the whole kind of TV talent show phenomenon, which is ongoing globally, I guess you could say. So, Cradle of Rage by Toesland. Check it out. What you got for us, Brian?
How can I top Toesland? I am going to go for, as it's coming up to St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to choose an album, a covers album, which celebrates the music of Mr. Rory Gallagher, sadly missed. And it is a cover album which was recorded by the wonderful Bernie Marsden, who we love dearly.
Yes.
Bernie recorded an album in 2008 with some of Rory's backing band, and the album is called Bernie Plays Rory. Great guitarist on the album that we love, who's in FM, Jim Fitzpatrick, who is actually out playing in the Jerry McAvoy's band, the Band of Friends, which celebrates Rory's music. So my hidden gem for this episode is Bernie Marsden's celebration of the music of Rory Gallagher, and the album is called Bernie Plays Rory. So go out and listen to it. It's good.
Very good.
Very, very good.
Well, I'll put a few songs from that on the playlist, of course.
We shall indeed.
Yeah, looking forward to this playlist, this episode 44 playlist. Go out and listen to it, everyone, as soon as it drops. Is that what the kids say? That's what the kids say, isn't it?
They do, yeah.
How are the kids, by the way? You heard from them? Are they doing all right?
They're studying. They got their exams coming up.
Oh yeah, of course, mock GCSEs and all that. Yeah, yeah.
GC doing their O levels.
Exactly. Say hello to them for me if you see them. The kids. That's it. Done. Episode 44 in the bag.
We are marching to 50.
Marching on to the big 50. We should do something for our 50th, I guess. Have a party or something. I guess. Well, we'll see how that plays out. We can always invite our. What are we up to now? 14 listeners. 15?
Yeah, 14, 15.
We can have a party with our 14 listeners. We could hire a small area in a pub in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And have a little party with our 14 listeners. That'd be fun. We thank you all for listening, of course. We know we've got more than 40 listeners, and we thank you for listening, of course, and keep the faith. Be good to yourselves and each other. And please donate to our charity, Shelter. As I say, you might get your hands on The Lives of Brian, or indeed a First About the Pod We Salute You mug.
Much coveted mug.
Indeed. There's not many.
No.
About 50 of them produced or something like that.
Exactly. And now that Popmaster is no longer on Radio 2, it now becomes...
Yes, indeed.
It's the holy grail of pop mugs. Rock mugs.
Exactly. Yes. Very good analogy, Brian. One of our mugs is very similar to the Holy Grail. Yes, I like that. Right. So we'll see you all next time. Episode 45.
Looking forward to it.
B. Brought to you by the letter B. See you then.
See you later.
Bye for now.
Rock on. Bye now.
First About the Pod We Salute You is a Maylie Rogers production.